Cheat Code Support Strategist by myheadinthecoudsnotcomingdown. Read by Rat Overlord. Chapter 18, Starting Line. Summary: Shinso meets the other half of the Chaos Duo. Hitoshi's mind was still reeling by the time they arrived at the large door that obviously led into the support lab. What did Midoriya mean when he said that they were going to help him get into the hero course? Could they even do that? How? He was knocked out of his stupor, quite literally, when the door blew off its hinges and threw him and Midoriya against the far wall of the hallway. It didn't hurt as bad as he would have expected, and honestly he was more dazed than hurt, but maybe that had something to do with the whole situation and not the fact that he'd just gotten thrown against a wall and was now sitting on the hallway floor. "Mei-chan!" Midoriya yelled. "You could have hurt us!" "Don't worry, Izakun. That was just a disorienting blast." A girl with bright pink hair and coveralls tied around her waist appeared in the doorway, nonchalantly moving a pair of giant goggles from her face to her head as if she hadn't just blown up half the hallway. "They'll cause damage to things, but not to people. Perfect for hostage situations." "Oh." Midori scrambled to his feet and grabbed a notebook from his pocket. "How does that affect people like Cementos, who are objectively made from things? There's a kid in Class 1A who can turn into rock and another in 1B who can turn into steel. Would they be affected? Would it only damage them when their quirks are activated? Or is the damage caused because the thing is non-living, in which case quirks wouldn't affect it because the person with the quirk is still alive? What about..." "What the..." A hero that Hitoshi assumed was Power Loader appeared in the doorway, his hands going to his helmet as he took in the scene. "How, Hatsume? I literally looked away for 2 seconds!" "Well, technically an explosion takes only a fraction of a second to begin," Midoriya began. "But the actual chemical reaction can take several seconds to run its course, depending on the chemicals involved. But you wouldn't be able to stop it once it reaches the activation energy." "Didn't you two promise to not bother the other students if I let you bring Shinso here?" Power Loader asked. "Oh, it's a support lab!" Hatsume dismissed. "Explosions are normal. We're not bothering." "Shut the fuck up and go to your boyfriend's room already!" A female voice called out loudly from inside the classroom. Midori turned bright red and sputtered, but Hatsume apparently didn't care about whatever his classmate was implying, because she simply zeroed in on Hitoshi and leaned down until she was only inches away from his face. He instinctively pressed himself as far as he could against the wall, which unfortunately wasn't that far. She smiled at him manically. "You must be Extra Credit-kun! Izukun's told me so much about you! We're gonna have so much fun!" Hitoshi simply blinked at her as he waited for his brain to catch up and maybe, just maybe, make sense of her words. Extra Credit-kun? "Mei-chan!" Midori shoved her away from him and shook his head as he helped Hitoshi up. "You can't just call people by nicknames like that when it's the first time you meet them. Shinso has a name, you know." "Not important," Hatsume dismissed. "What is important is that I'm going to make his babies." Hitoshi choked at nothing and almost fell back onto the floor again as the crazy girl grabbed his hand and pulled him into the lab with Midoriya following close behind. He barely got a glimpse of the other students before he was being yanked into a small, dark room lined with computers and the door shut ominously behind him, trapping him with the 2 crazy students who had just kidnapped him. Was being a hero really worth all this? Yes it was. Hitoshi took a deep breath and looked at his kidnappers with a well-practiced, bored expression. "So, are you going to explain what's going on now?" Hatsume turned and slapped Midoriya's chest. "Izukun! You didn't explain anything to Extra Credit-kun?" I was waiting for you," Midoriya defended. "I thought you wanted..." "Don't waste time on my account, Izukun! We have work to do!" Hatsume turned back to Hitoshi. "You, Extra Credit-kun, are our new project." Hitoshi didn't think that explained anything except for the nickname he'd apparently acquired, but thankfully Midoriya was a little more willing to fill in the gaps. "Power Loader has agreed to give us extra credit if we use our skills to help you." Midoriya sighed as he turned on the lights and sat down in front of the line of computers. "I'm an analyst, and Mei-chan is obviously an inventor, so we're going to, be your support, I guess. I'll help you analyze and train your quirk, and she'll make you a support item that you can use during the sports festival next month. To give you the best possible chance of transferring into the hero course, that is. Honestly, it's ridiculous that they wouldn't let you into the hero course in the first place, but at least now you can prove everyone wrong, right? Hitoshi thought about that for a long moment. So you're basically going to train me to be a hero so you can get extra credit? Midoriya smiled awkwardly. Yes? I mean, only if that's okay. We don't have to if you don't want us to. I mean, I get that we can kind of be a lot sometimes, and... Don't give him a choice, Izu-kun! Hatsume exclaimed. We're helping you, and that's final. Okay, extra credit-kun? Hitoshi couldn't help but snorting. Well, I'm not exactly in a position to say no, but are you sure you even want to help a kid with a villain's quirk become even more dangerous? What if I, go rogue like everyone's always told me? His kidnappers obviously hadn't missed any of the bitterness in Hitoshi's voice, because they shared a glance, and when Hatsume responded, she sounded angry. Okay, that's it. You're going to win this, and we're going to prove those assholes wrong. I am so sick of people being rude to my friends just because of downright stupid prejudices. Friends? Hitoshi's brain went blank. Hatsume couldn't possibly be including him in that, could she? They literally just met. But then again, she'd already talked about having his babies, whatever the hell that meant. It's best not to fight her friendship. Midori gave him a small, determined smile. When Mei-chan gets something in her brain, it's just best to roll with it. So, let's start with your quirk. It's brainwashing, right? Verbal response based? Hitoshi nodded, still reeling. Yeah, but, I can't control higher brain functions. Just basically make the person into a puppet. Midoriya had whipped out of a notebook that was rapidly writing down everything Hitoshi was saying. How do you snap out of it? Do you have to release your control? Hitoshi shrugged. I can, if they complete all the orders I gave them, but it's more common for someone else to jostle them, which can break my hold. That's how most of my classmates rescued anyone that they thought I'd use my quirk on. Midoriya ignored Hatsume's annoyed buzzing next to him. Ask me a question. Why? Hitoshi asked suspiciously. Midoriya grinned. So you can brainwash me, of course. I need to know how it feels to be on the receiving end, and it'll help me explore your limits. His eyes went blank as Hitoshi took control, glancing over at Hatsume, expecting her to be creeped out at the very least. To his surprise, however, she just looked excited and grabbed Midoriya's notebook from his lax grip, flipping through some of the pages until she found what she was looking for. Okay, test time! Izu-kun already made a list of orders that he wants you to give him, so let's start! Tell him to stand on one foot! Hitoshi hesitated, glancing between Hatsume and Isuku. He'd learned the hard way to not give anyone any functional orders without their express permission. I should ask him first. Well then, just ask him now, Hatsume said impatiently. It'll be another experiment to see if he tells the truth under a quirk. It doesn't work like that. Hitoshi griped and turned to Midoriya. Tell me whether or not you're okay with me giving you orders. Just as he'd expected, Midoriya simply sat and stared at him blankly. Hitoshi turned back to Hatsume, who looked vaguely disappointed. See? Verbal responses count as a higher brain function. I'm just going to wake him up and ask. Hitoshi released his hold and watched nervously as the light came back to Midoriya's eyes. Sure, he'd said that he wanted Hitoshi to brainwash him, but what if he got angry? It turned out that Hitoshi didn't have anything to be worried about, because the moment that Midoriya was in control of himself again, he just shook his head and grinned brightly. That was so cool! Midoriya grabbed his notebook back from Hatsume and scribbled a few things before handing the notebook to Hitoshi. Okay, so this time I want you to tell me to do things on this list. And if I haven't woken up by the end of it, May, could you just jostle me awake? I want to compare that to Shinso releasing his control voluntarily. Sure thing, Izu-kun! Hatsume grinned and grabbed her phone to start the recording session. Ready! Do you think you'll wake up before the end? Hitoshi couldn't help asking. He had to ask a question to establish control anyways, so he may as well ask one that he was curious about. I don't know. Midoriya said. It'll depend on how your quirk deals with impossible orders. Okay. Hitoshi was pretty sure that they'd already figured that out, since Midoriya had just done nothing rather than answer his question earlier, but apparently he was no longer the expert on his own quirk. He took control quickly of Midoriya and started going down the list. Most of the orders were easy things like stand up, sit down, stand on one foot, etc. The most interesting thing that happened was when Hitoshi ordered Midoriya to sit down on a stool. Well, there wasn't a stool in the little room they were in, so, to Hitoshi's surprise, Midoriya actually took the initiative to leave the room and go sit in a stool out by Power Loader's desk. Hitoshi almost died of his embarrassment as he ran after Midoriya, frantically apologizing to the other support students, but he finally decided that their classmates must be used to their antics because the only response they gave to their classmate coming out practically brain dead was a few curious glances and a few giggles to Power Loader's exasperation. Shinso, I'm assuming you're currently in control of Midoriya? Power Loader asked with a sigh. Hitoshi froze. This was it. This was how he got expelled from UA. He should have known better than to brainwash a UA student, even with their permission, and now he was going to get punished for his stupidity. He should have known this whole situation was too good to be true. He stared at the floor, clamping down on his anger and disappointment. Yes, sir. I'll release him from my quirk right away. There's no need for that, Power Loader said. I'm sure you're in the middle of an experiment, right? Hitoshi hesitantly nodded. Was Power Loader just going to accept that? He wasn't going to expel him for using his quirk on a fellow student? Apparently not, because Power Loader simply nodded as if the situation was completely normal, or as normal as any situation could be when Midoriya and Hatsume were involved. Shinso, please tell Midoriya to get back to his room, Power Loader said, and make sure he doesn't do anything dangerous on the way back. There are power tools in here. Hitoshi nodded frantically, grateful that he had somehow avoided getting expelled, and ordered Midoriya to go back to Hatsume, who was currently rolling on the floor of the little room, dying of laughter. With his luck, he could just imagine Midoriya trying to walk all the way back home, completely brainwashed if he told him to just go to his room. After that minor blip, everything went smoothly. Everything that was, until Hitoshi read the last order on Midoriya's list. Hatsume? Hitoshi pointed to the page. Does he really want me to order him to do this? Don't call me Hatsume, extra credit-kun. Mei-chan is fine. Hatsume leaned over and read the order. That one's actually a pretty important experiment. So yeah, he definitely wants you to do it. Okay. Hitoshi took a deep breath and looked at Midoriya, who was waiting in the middle of the room. Do a backflip. Midoriya squatted and jumped backwards, only to hit the ground as his attempt at a backflip completely failed. Ow! Midoriya groaned and rolled over, the impact more than enough to knock him from Hitoshi's control. Okay, so the person will still try to complete impossible commands, but won't be able to do them if the task is outside their ability level. Nice to know. I'm so sorry. Hitoshi ran to help him up. I shouldn't have given you that order. Are you hurt? Do you need me to leave? I'm so sorry. I should have stopped asking questions. I'm probably making you really uncomfortable. Midoriya just laughed with a wince. No. I put that on there on purpose. It was the only thing I could think of that, while theoretically possible, wasn't a skill that I have. My first thought was that I would just wake up when I was given the order, or maybe my brain would subconsciously know how to complete the task. Wait, do you know how to do a backflip? Do I look like I know how to do a backflip? Hitoshi deadpanned. And why would that even matter? Because your quirk could be connecting your target's body to your brain instead of theirs, Midori explained as he took back his notebook. May, make a note that we should ask Recovery Girl if she has access to some kind of brain scanner. We need to know whose brain lights up when these tasks are being done, Shinso's or his target's. Will do, Izakun, Hatsume said cheerfully. I could probably build one myself if... Hitoshi couldn't help but feel like he was intruding on them as both of them dissolved into muttering and wrote down their observations in their respective notebooks. He was starting to wonder if he should just go back to class when one of Midoriya's more coherent mutterings caught his attention. And so we know you can modify memories, so... No, I can't. Hitoshi interrupted before he could even stop himself, and he leaned back slightly when both of his kidnappers stopped their note-taking to stare at him. Midoriya frowned. But the footage that you were in indicated that you could. I don't know what you think you saw, but... Hitoshi shrugged helplessly. I mean, I've never actually tried it. I mean, I would have gotten in way too much trouble for something like that. But I can't even make someone answer a question, so I'm pretty sure I can't make someone forget something or anything like that. Midoriya tapped his cheek with his pencil a few times. May, what color is Shinso's hair? Hatsume grinned. Purple! Midoriya nodded. Okay, now turn and face the wall. Shinso, put her under your quirk so we can try something. Wait, were they actually going to try and modify Hatsume's memories? It seemed like something that she shouldn't be okay with, but when it came to these two, Shinso really didn't know if any of the normal rules applied. If she wants me to, I can, but she'd have to answer one of my questions. Oh! Even from the back, Hatsume's excitement was obvious. Do I get to be the test subject this time? Are you actually crazy? Hitoshi asked incredulously. Hatsume simply laughed. Probably! Hitoshi activated his quirk and shook his head in disbelief. These two had to be insane. Okay, now what? Midoriya thought for a moment. Tell her to remember your hair being green. Hitoshi still didn't think this was actually going to work, so he went ahead and gave the order. Then he released his control. Midoriya smiled at him, then turned to Hatsume. Okay, Mei-chan, before you turn around, what color is Shinso's hair? Is that a trick question? Hatsume sounded confused. It's green, just like yours, Isakun. I thought you guys were going to mess with my memories or something. Hitoshi's jaw dropped, and Midoriya's face split into a bright grin. Turn around! Hatsume turned around quickly and did a double take as soon as she saw Hitoshi. Whoa! That's so trippy! Hitoshi couldn't even think. He hadn't even known he could do that. Until he'd seen her reaction, he'd half thought they were just being nice or something. But he'd actually changed her memories. How did you know I could do that? Isuku smiled. I watched your entrance exam. That other examinee you got into a fight with? I know him. He wouldn't have just let something like that slide unless he'd actually forgotten about you like you'd ordered. All that was left was to confirm my theory. Hatsume grinned and leaned close to his face. I'm going to have so much fun making your babies! Hitoshi walked into class 1C at the end of the hour, shell-shocked and with a smear of soot on his cheek that he hadn't got around to wiping off after Hatsume's welcome explosion. The moment that Present Mike saw him, the corners of his mouth started twitching, and it was obvious that he was trying to hold back giggles. So, how was it? I think I just made a deal with the devil, Hitoshi said numbly. Actually, 2 devils. Is that worse? Feels like it's worse. This time, Mike-sensei didn't even bother to hold back his laughter. Yeah, the support course is like that. Go ahead and take a seat. Hitoshi ignored his classmates' whispers as he made his way to his seat and took out his things for the next lesson. Yes, Midoriya and Hatsume were overwhelming, but in less than an hour, they discovered things about his quirk that Hitoshi hadn't even realized after 10 years of having it. If anyone at UA could get him into the hero course, it was his kidnappers. So, if those two really were demons, Hitoshi couldn't quite bring himself to regret signing away his soul.